was like, oh, wait a second, I like this place. Like, I liked the energy, I liked the people that I was meeting. And I spent just 9 days here, but in those 9 days, I texted that same Kenyan friend in London. I was like, so I'm meant to come back, and I don't know why, because I literally was just going back to pack up my stuff and put it into storage. And she's like, well, I'm actually going to go back to Nairobi in a few weeks' time to visit with my family and stay for a month. You're welcome to come back with me. And I was like, awesome. I was at peace. I felt a sense of community I'd never felt before. Like, people were looking after each other. You know, Americans are so individualistic, and British people are so grumpy. Like, it's just, not talk bad to the British people that might be watching. We love you, kind of, because there's so much more to life than our work. There's, I look at my own life, and people are like, how do you live in all these places? How do you do all these different things? How do you decide to become a mom at 42, right? And I'm like, I believe my purpose on this planet is to have as many experiences as possible.
Welcome to Life by Design with Tim Booker, where you can live well, you can own your future, and you can cultivate your legacy.
Welcome to Life by Design with Tim Booker. I'm excited here. I'm here in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm excited here today to have a special guest. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
On this channel, it's about intentional living. It's about self-actualization. It's about people searching for wholeness. In a world where people measure their success by their titles or their financial award, here we're redefining how people look at their lives in terms of wholeness and how they measure wealth. And I'm excited here today to talk to someone who has an exciting journey to share with us, some experience. Danielle, have lived from Boston to London and now Nairobi. She's worked in corporate, both in the US, both in Europe, and now Nairobi. She is pursuing her deep passion, and she's found that here in Nairobi. And I'm excited for her to share her story, so welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. So just to frame this conversation today, I would love for you to introduce yourself. Sure. Definitely your deep experience as a business strategist, working for some of the largest organizations in America and Europe. And you're bringing that experience here to the community and join here in the local community to partner and help not only businesses, but women self-actualize. And I'm excited here today. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So tell us your great journey.
Hey, it's a long journey. Do you want the short version first?
However you want to share it. You have a...
Okay, so let me start with an introduction. My name is Danielle Anderson. I am a business strategist and business coach for women-owned entrepreneurs, or women-owned businesses, rather. Really supporting them to hit the revenue targets that they want, but more importantly, to have the lives that they want behind that. Because as you rightfully said, success isn't just about accolades and money and titles, but it's about the life that you're able to live behind the business that you have. So I really support them with strategy, structures, and boundaries so that they can have both.
That's great. That's great. So why Nairobi for you? What was compelling here for you to call it home?
So I first came to Nairobi in 2016. I had been living in London for 11 years at that point. I had left the US when I was very young. I was 24. We'll come to that story later, I'm sure. But came here for the first time in 2016 after having lived in London for 11 years. And only came out of curiosity. I had met a Kenyan when I was in London. She was like, Danielle, you love to travel. You love business. Nairobi has an awesome startup ecosystem that I think you might be interested in. And I was like, all right, cool. Let me add it to my never-ending list of places in the world that I want to visit, and hopefully one day I'll make it there. Right. So a few years later, in 2016, I finally had the opportunity to come. And I was here initially for just 9 days. But those 9 days came at a point in my life where everything was basically falling apart. Like my marriage had just ended. I just separated from my husband of 8 years. I had already left the corporate career and started the business that I'm doing now, but I had built it in a way that it was always location independent. I knew that I didn't want to stay in London, but I also knew I didn't want to move back to the US. Right. So I was kind of in this transition phase of my life where I just didn't know where's next for me. And so I came to Nairobi first in that transition. I was like, oh, wait a second, I like this place. Like, I liked the energy, I liked the people that I was meeting. And I spent just 9 days here, but in those 9 days, I texted that same Kenyan friend in London. I was like, So I'm meant to come back, and I don't know why, because I literally was just going back to pack up my stuff and put it into storage. And she's like, well, I'm actually going to go back to Nairobi in a few weeks' time to visit with my family and stay for a month. You're welcome to come back with me. And I was like, awesome, booked the ticket. So I literally left Nairobi, did exactly that, packed up all my stuff, put it into storage. 3 weeks later, I was back here, and I stayed for a month.
Wow.
And wasn't really in the city, actually, though. I was mostly on the coast. I was now grieving the loss of this life that I've now left behind, like very firmly left behind. My stuff was in storage. My marriage was ending. The life as I knew it was completely over. And I had this idea that I was going to be a digital nomad for a while. You know, I'd built my business in a way that was already location independent. And so I spent the first month here, but I didn't want to call it home yet. I was like, all right, I like it, but I didn't know enough, right? So I left for a bit. I went actually to the States for a little while it was funny. I went to the States for 6 weeks, and it was the longest I'd ever spent in the U.S. since I'd left the U.S. 11 years earlier.
Wow.
And the reason I went for so long was twofold. One, my dad was in poor health by that point, so I really wanted to make an opportunity to spend a lot of time with him and reconnect with people that I'd honestly neglected for a long time. But the second reason is that I wanted to challenge all of those stereotypes I'd stuck into my head about what America was like.
Right.
And I was like, maybe it's not true. Maybe all these things that I believe about the U.S. aren't true. And of course they were. But I was grateful to have that time and to reconnect with people and to see it as a place that I didn't have to, not that I feared it, but like I always felt so disconnected when I went back.
Yeah.
So spending 6 weeks there was great because it allowed me to reconnect with people that were super important to me. And then I did the digital nomad thing for a while. I traveled around, I went to different places. And it wasn't until about 9 months later that I still had this kind of calling in the back of my mind, like something about Nairobi was ticking. Like, Danielle, you have to go out and check it out more seriously.
Right.
So I came back with the idea now of seeing if I could make my business work here, not just like messing around on the coast and hanging out by the ocean and drinking cocktails and just chilling and recovering, but really trying to see like, can my business work here? Yeah. So I came back this time for 2 months and really at that point put my all into networking, meeting with entrepreneurs, connecting with the accelerator programs here, the incubation centers, the universities, talking to people, and just seeing like, is what I do needed? Right? Did pure market research and networking. And the overwhelming response that I got from people was like, yeah, we need you, but you can't do this in and out thing because we don't really trust you if you go in and out. I was like, okay, awesome. Like, give me a couple months, I'll be back. And then a few months later, I was back, and I've been here ever since. And that was 8 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think what I love about your story is there's a lot of parallels. You and I had a conversation about kind of our journey through corporate America. You know, we've traveled extensively throughout the world.
Yeah.
We've been educated in some of the larger companies, so we have some global business knowledge that can be powerful. But I guess I want to kind of stay on your story. You traveled around. You had, you were in London. You were in the U.S. And obviously, it wasn't a fit for you.
Yeah.
But Nairobi was.
Yeah.
And I value my experience in the U.S. I mean, I grew up in Washington, D.C. Some of the lessons that I've learned throughout living in the U.S. and doing business has created a foundation for me to be happy where I am today. But what was missing for you? What was that ingredients? What were those ingredients or factors that made this more of a complete experience for you, that helped you self-actualize, which is what we're trying to talk about today?
Yeah. I don't think I knew how much I didn't fit into those places until I wasn't in those places anymore, right? I think you do have to kind of step outside of what you know to see what else is possible. Right. So my first move was from Boston to New York City, right? I moved to go to school. I moved to go to NYU, and I knew Boston wasn't the place for me. And I don't know why I knew that, but as a teenager, I knew that. And I knew I have to get out of the city, otherwise my life is going to go down the drain, quite frankly. Like, all my guy friends were getting locked up. All my girlfriends were having babies. Like, I wasn't, it just wasn't the right setup for me. And I knew that. I knew if I stayed there, that was the path I might go down. So I made a real effort to get out of Boston, even though there's great schools there. And I moved to New York. I lived in New York City for 6 years. And if you had asked me 25 years ago, where are you going to live in 25 years? I'm going to be in New York forever. Like, I am going to die in New York, right? And then one day came and I was like, I do not want to be in New York anymore. And it wasn't that something specific had happened to make me feel that way. Like, I had lived there through 9/11 and all the turmoil that came after that, but that wasn't it. It was just, there was something about New York that was just I got tired of it. After 6 years, I just didn't want to be there anymore. I was working for JP Morgan at the time, and there was an opportunity to shift to their London office, and I took it. That's a short version of the story. I actually made that opportunity happen. Someone planted the seed like, hey, would you ever live in London? And I never thought about living in London before. And I was like, but why not? Like, I'm young, I'm single, I don't have any obligations. It seems cool, like, why not? And so I actually made that opportunity happen by talking to people in the organization, seeing what opportunities there could be. And then about 6 months later, I was living there. As I was on that plane going to London, I was like, what the hell have I just done? You know, because I didn't know anybody there. The only people I knew were people from work that I spoke to on, instant messenger through the computer. I didn't really know anyone, and I didn't have family there. I was young. But anyway, I went there, and very soon after being in London, I realized I wasn't very happy there. Wow. But I stuck it out for a number of reasons. The first one is because what I loved about London, and which I took advantage of from the jump, was its proximity to travel anywhere. Mm-hmm. That's when I really caught the wanderlust bug, the travel bug, the exploration. I used every single holiday that I had from work to go and travel somewhere. Mm-hmm. And this was back when flights were like $3 one way to go from London to Amsterdam or whatever. Right. And so I would just go weekends to different places and made a rule for myself, like, don't go back to the same place twice, just go somewhere different. Right. But I knew I wasn't happy in London, but I didn't know why, right? So I was in a job that was paying great money. I was very well recognized in my industry. I had great opportunities within the investment banking space, and in many ways liked what I did. But I found that I was constantly trying to escape it by traveling to different places, right? But I said, okay, let me just stick around long enough so I can get my permanent residency. Mm-hmm. Then I have options. Eventually it became citizenship. Eventually it became that I met a British guy and I got married, and then I was not stuck, but I saw my life there for a while. Right. But I knew it wasn't the place I wanted to stay. And even with him, our conversations were always around, like, we're going to move somewhere together someday. We didn't know where that somewhere was, but we're going to move somewhere together someday. And to be honest, had I stayed in corporate, I probably would have ended up in Asia at some point. Mm-hmm. That would have been like the next spot for me. But anyway, I didn't know what that place was. And then the first time that I came to sub-Saharan Africa was in 2013. I had just left corporate with zero plan about what I was going to do with my life. I just knew I couldn't do that anymore. And I went to Zimbabwe, and I spent 3 weeks in Zimbabwe, and I loved it. Like, I felt this feeling that I'd never felt before. Like, just, I was at peace. I felt a sense of community I'd never felt before. Like, people were looking after each other. The Americans are so individualistic, and British people are so grumpy. Like, it's just, not talk bad to the British people that might be watching. We love you, kind of. Right. But it just, I never felt like those were the right spots for me. Right. But anyway, here I am in Zimbabwe, and I just noticed the sense of community and the sense of feeling, and I liked that. And that's what made me realize you cannot go back into corporate. I didn't yet have the answer about what I wanted to do instead, but I had this overwhelming feeling like you cannot go back into corporate. And that was in 2013. My second visit to sub-Saharan Africa was in 2016, right before coming to Kenya, and it was to Johannesburg. Wow. And I was staying out in the townships in Soweto. I was there actually for a wedding, and I was traveling around the country a bit, but my first stop was landing in Soweto. And I had that same feeling again of like, I feel my soul here. I feel something here that I've never felt before. And it was the same when I came to Nairobi. The reason, though, that Nairobi stuck over those other locations is because it also made sense from a business point of view. Because I'm a smart woman. Like, it can't be just like all vibes, right? You need to also see like, where do I make things work? Where does my life fit in? But it still comes back to that community feeling that I didn't feel anywhere else before. It's the freedom to be who I want to be. And don't get me wrong, like, I actually don't really care what people think about me, or if they're going to judge me, or if they have opinions, like, that's their business. I don't care. But here I don't feel like I even need to justify to anybody what I'm doing. I can just, I have the freedom to be me and to do what I want to do, and to make the decisions that I want to make and live the life I want to have.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. It's a powerful story. So, what's so connective with our story is I've done previous interviews or videos, and what I communicated was this is the most natural fit that I felt in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm in myself. I have one voice, right? And I kind of felt like when I was in the U.S. specifically, that I had almost multiple personalities. I had a business personality, I had my natural self, You know, if I walked into a restaurant, store, church, I'm constantly changing who I am to fit the environment. And I feel like here, it's not necessary, it's not required. I'm my natural self. So
Yeah.
I find it very interesting. You have a very similar story.
Yeah.
And I remember, you remember we used to watch movies and everybody would go to Bali, Indonesia to find themselves, right? But no one ever said that you could do that here,
True.
that you can find that sense of community. So one of the things we speak about on this channel is generational wealth, and we talk about the 4 pillars, right? Financial being one, but the other one is basically your physical wealth, which is obviously your health and your wholeness. And we talk about your spiritual and living in your purpose. And then we
Yeah.
talk about family community. And I can tell you here, from the minute I arrived in Nairobi, I felt a sense of community that was very powerful. People welcomed me here from day one.
Yeah.
Welcome. The other thing you said, this is very interesting, I want to highlight on this podcast today, is that the intellectual capital and diversity that exists in Nairobi surprised me and made this a very compelling business proposition for me.
Yeah.
You know, speaking, coming from New York, for me, this has some of the feel that I had in New York in terms of diversity. You have diversity of tribe, you have diversity of different people from the diaspora, you have
Yeah.
people from Europe, you have people from Asia, you have people from the US, you have people from all over the world coexisting, living, and building businesses here.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. And that kind of diversity was important to me. I love it. From food, I can go to, you know, Korean barbecue place, to a Japanese steakhouse, to have Indian food, or I can go to, yesterday I went to a Mediterranean and Greek restaurant.
Yeah.
The diversity of food options and culture, from an Ethiopian restaurant to a Somalian restaurant to a Kenyan restaurant, the diversity of options are vast. How important are those elements for you coming from the cities that you live in?
Yeah.
Has that been a factor for you, that cultural diversity and that kind of diversity of intellectual capital and youth movement here?
It wasn't a huge factor for me, to be honest. Like before moving to Kenya, I'd actually visited, I think I'd 70 countries before I came to Kenya. So I've been around the world. Like I've seen places. It wasn't like choosing Bali versus Nairobi. Like I've been to places and didn't really feel that feeling anywhere else that I'd been to. Yeah, it's a lot.
No,
It's a
think
lot.
about that.
Yeah.
You've been to 70 countries.
Well, now it's 75, but yeah, at that point it was
And-
70.
And this is your choice
Yeah.
for wholeness.
Yeah, it's true.
That's compelling.
Yeah. Yeah. There's others that were like top contenders. For example, I spent during that year that I was doing a bit of digital nomad life, I spent actually about 7 months in Jamaica. And I love Jamaica. Like I have great friends there, and I love Nairobi, actually not Nairobi, but Mombasa and the coast feels a lot like Jamaica does to me. Like that's where I felt like that synergy when I first landed here. But the challenge with being in the Caribbean, which you also know because you spent time in the Dominican Republic, is it's hard to do business in the Caribbean because you got to go from one island to another.
Yes.
Every economy is different.
Yes.
Every regulation is different. Even the languages can be different. And I knew I didn't want that. And I also didn't want to make a connection with the US from a business point of view. So that's why Jamaica was kind of off the table for me, because the entire island is the same population as this city. So going back to your other question about like how important was it for me to have that diversity, it makes it an easier landing for sure. Like there's some comforts, there's some familiarity because the UN is here, because there's so many embassies here, because there's so many multinationals here. Like you do have a lot of diversity of people, which is great. But that wasn't what I was really looking for when I came, you know, because I knew it was going to be different. I was okay with it being different.
Right, that's great.
Yeah.
So for me, I got to highlight this, your spiritual purpose, living in your purpose.
Yeah.
From a youth, you were being compelled to find your home. It's inside of you. The same thing happened to me when I arrived in Nairobi and many other places. There were some compelling spiritual connections that I had to certain places. There were messages that were coming through my soul. Hey, you need to be doing this. And the yearning was so strong that I could not ignore it.
Yeah.
And you communicated that through your story several times.
Yeah.
And this leads me to what you do today.
Sure.
You coach, advise, you provide healing, direction, encouragement, and a framework to grow and live a balanced life. You focus specifically on all people, but specifically women.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your current business, why that's so important to you, and what you've learned and discovered through that journey.
Sure. So I started my business in 2013 after leaving corporate. And leaving corporate was also a huge aha moment for me. You know, I feel like if we listen to our bodies will tell us when we're in the wrong spot, right? And it took me a long time to figure out that I was in the wrong spot for corporate, because especially growing up in America and going to NYU and, you know, having expectations put on us, it was a great job. It was a great opportunity. It was a great career. And I was good at it. I enjoyed a lot of it, right? But a moment came when I was like, this can't be it. This can't be what the rest of my life is. And it was actually over brunch with a former boss of mine. And he said, oh, I see myself doing this until I retire. And I was like, what? Like 30 more years? I don't, right? And then within like a month later, I had resigned and left, and I haven't been back in the industry since. So I started my business because I realized that I have an innate skill at strategy. I had even been doing strategy within corporates, like that was my remit within investment banking. And I just very naturally can spot an opportunity, look at a business model, see what pieces need to be pulled together and how to make it happen. And that's what I did in the business. Like the business would come and say, hey, we want to start trading in this new market, or we want to introduce this product to these existing customers. How do we make it happen? And it was my job to figure that out and then to direct people on how to make it happen. So I saw that I had this innate skill that businesses, like especially small businesses, they don't have it, right? They just have a passion, they have an idea, they have something that they want to do, but they don't have the know-how of all of the different pieces and how they fit together. So I immediately saw that I could be useful in that space. And that's how I started my business, is using what I knew that I was innately good at, that other people are not innately good at, and giving them my gift to help them with their businesses. That's how it started back in 2013. Now, 12 years later, it's still very much that, but it has morphed over the years. Like initially back in the day, I was working primarily with startups. I was going into incubation and acceleration programs and working with those early stage entrepreneurs. And I did that for many, many years, even when I first came to Nairobi. I also used to work with men as well, and that shifted when I came here, which is a different story, but we can talk about it later. So I made the shift to what I do now, I would say about 5 years ago during COVID, when I actually had to tear my entire business model down and start from scratch because what I had been doing wasn't working anymore. Partly because we were locked down and the market had just changed, also because there were new opportunities that I didn't realize when I had first moved here. But what I know that I guess it's the self-actualization, the passion, my purpose is I know that I still can support people to build their businesses in a way that actually works, that makes them money, but that doesn't suck the life out of them, because there's so much more to life than our work. There's, you know, I look at my own life and people are like, how do you live in all these places? How do you do all these different things? How do you decide to become a mom at 42, right? And I'm like, I believe my purpose on this planet is to have as many experiences as possible, to live as many different versions of Danielle that I possibly can, because who is telling you have to be the same person for your entire life? Like, and if you miss out on those experiences, it's your loss at the end of the day, because imagine all the things that you could have done and you just, you were afraid to do it, or like you didn't trust yourself, or someone told you not to. So that's a roundabout answer to your question, but I really feel like my purpose is to support other people to realize that they can have that for themselves too. And that the only way to make that happen is, as you say, generational wealth. Like you need to have financial stability so that you can have time off and do stuff. You need to have safety and security and understand what that means to you so that you can have the freedom to then do other things, right? You need to know what it is that you're passionate about, or what you enjoy, or what brings you purpose. But you don't know that unless you try, right? You have to experiment. You have to allow yourself to make mistakes along the way and say, oh yeah, that didn't really work out for me, you know?
Yeah, I think it's exciting what you're doing here in the business community. But can you highlight a little bit about the transformative impact that women are having here in Nairobi and how you're supporting that?
Yeah.
Could you share a little bit about that, the purpose and what you're doing, and the true impact of how it's transformative here in this country?
Yeah, so I don't have the exact numbers, but I know that women definitely make up the majority of business owners, small business owners here in Kenya, and contribute greatly to the GDP of this country. And we're talking about like women on the side of the road that have small dukas, up to women that are in corporate spaces or big corporations. They're all ends of the spectrum. And so to support women is such a fundamental part of supporting this country and the growth of this country, because they are very much the backbone. At the same time, they're the ones that are here raising babies. They're the ones that are here supporting the elder generations. There's so much that's on their shoulders to be the providers, to be the supporters, to be the sister, the mother, the daughter, the wife. And to be able to support those women is super important to me. Now, the majority of women that I'm working with are highly educated. They probably have a little bit of international experience. Some of them have lived outside also. They've come back maybe. They've tried to be in the diaspora. They've decided that they want to come back to Kenya. And for me, it's really about, as I mentioned earlier, giving them the opportunity to understand, how do I run my business strategically so that it gives me all of the things that I genuinely want, that it allows me to have financial success, and it also allows me to have a life that I love living too.
Right.
Because ultimately, their business is their lifeline. It's what's providing them with their livelihood, what's being able to provide them with school fees and housing and transportation and whatever else that's important to them. And so the first thing is really about supporting them with strategy. How do they make their business work? How do they plug the holes that are there? How do they take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of them but maybe they don't know? The second thing, which is important in order to get to that state, is to have structures and systems in place so that they are not in their business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because you might have seen, like, hustle culture is a crazy thing here, like, and maybe even more so than the U.S. team no sleep nonsense of Silicon Valley. The Silicon Savannah people are nonstop, and they'll have a main hustle, and they'll have a side hustle, and they'll have a side hustle to the side hustle, and then they'll have a small shower, and then they'll have all of these things that are going on. Which is draining, right? And you can't spread yourself so thin and hope that everything is super successful. And the best way to support them with that is with systems and structure. And the third thing I teach a lot about with the women and support them with is boundaries, creating boundaries for your time, your energy, not feeling like you have to apologize if you're not available, right? I was sharing earlier today in the room as we were setting up that someone asked me, hey, can you do a call at 11 o'clock on Thursday? And I was like, no, I have another engagement. I can talk to you on Tuesday at 4. Right?
It's easy.
And like, you don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to justify why you're not available. The reason I'm not available is because I'm actually having a staycation by myself, no laptop, no toddler, no nothing. And so like, I'm protecting my need for rest, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. So giving women, I don't want to say giving them permission because that's a bit patronizing, but allowing them to see that there's different ways of operating that are still very, very professional, but also enforce what they need for themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's what this is about. I mean, you need a framework for wholeness.
Yes.
And protecting your time, protecting your health, protecting your purpose.
Protecting your energy.
Protecting your community.
Also.
Making sure you have the right community, supportive community around you is critically important. Those become the foundation by which you build your financial wealth.
For sure.
Right? Your people, your purpose. Right? You have to have physical health or you're unable to do it.
Yes.
One thing I love about this country is the entrepreneur spirit, that hustle mentality. By creating a framework that allows people to prosper with that entrepreneurial energy, I think is critical. So one of the things we're doing here, and you and I talked about it, is kicking off the Nairobi Accelerator. It's a think tank here, bringing people like yourself. There's a tremendous amount of talent and experience in this country to solve the critical roadblocks that hold businesses back. Some of that can be funding, structure. Some of that is the integration of some of the new technology, like AI technology, to help them manage their business for efficiency. Logistics, some logistic channels that can be helpful. So all those things, we're here to do that. And I'm excited today that you were excited to come and share this with us today and hopefully participate in the Nairobi Accelerator as a think tank, so we can help people lead in those vertical markets that Kenya's already leading in many of these areas: renewable energy, investment in AI technology. We can go on and on. Harvesting natural resources, education. They're starting to lead in many areas. There's emerging health tourism businesses coming here in the country. So many of these indicators are growing, and people like us have joined that movement with the Kenyan community to help that be facilitated. So I'm excited about that today. So I guess I want to, since you have so much wealth of knowledge here, maybe you can share with our listeners, given your background from, let's start with the U.S., Boston,
Yeah.
to London, to Nairobi, to 75 plus countries,
Between.
to, hey, Jamaica, to the coast, right?
Yeah.
All this rich experience. Maybe you can share just maybe, 2 or 3, I would call major life lessons or wisdom points in terms of how do you live an intentional, healthy, whole life? Give me some of those greatest lessons. I have a few of them I'm going to share that I found that are really important to protect, but I'll be interested in hearing what yours are.
Wow. Okay. So the first lesson I received when I was 28 years old, I mean, there's probably some before that, but the first that really set me off on a new path was when I was 28 years old. My then husband was 6 months older than me, so he was also 28 at the time, and he was diagnosed with brain cancer.
Ooh.
And so the reason that this was a turning point for me is because up until that point, yeah, people die. Like most of the time, people that are our age who die, they've been in a tragic accident. Maybe there's been a terrorist attack. There's been something freak that you can't imagine.
Right.
Or they've been old, right? And then you're like, okay, it's sad that grandma died, but she did her time. Like she ticked around for a while, right? And it was never someone that was in my peer group that was now diagnosed with a terminal illness, right? And I was in JP Morgan at the time, and that was like the eye opener for me of like, wait a second, life is short. Life is so short. We don't know when our time is. We know that we're gonna go. Is it today? Is it tomorrow? Is it 20 years from now? We don't know. And so that's when I was really like, I cannot stay. I didn't leave for a while, but I was like, this cannot be all that there is to my life. I can't spend my life in a job that makes me miserable, in a relationship that makes me miserable, in a city that makes me miserable. So I become very attuned to that over the years of really checking in with my own body, my own soul, like, is this where I'm supposed to be or not? And trusting that intuition, following that intuition. That doesn't mean I don't make mistakes still. Of course I do. I end up in the wrong situations, but really being okay with ending things because I know that there is something else out there that's meant for me. So I think that's one lesson is like life is short. So don't wait until you retire to start living because you might never retire. Right. You might not get that far. Right. So that's the first thing. The second lesson, again, there's others that come in between, but another lesson that came to me was when I was turning 40. And when I was turning 40, I was excited. I was like, it wasn't like when I turned 30 and I was very scared about turning 30. I think it's not that I felt like I didn't achieve the things I was meant to do, but I was like, oh, I'm old when I turned 30. When I was 40, I was like, wow, I'm so young. I can't believe it. But when I turned 40 is when I really started to think about this concept of legacy. Like, what do I want my legacy to be? What do I want the rest of my maybe 40 years still, maybe not? What do I want my legacy to be? And at the time, I wasn't a mother. And I never really cared about having kids. Like, my ex-husband and I never had kids together. We never wanted kids together. It was never really a priority for me. And it was something that I was like, it's okay if it happens, but it was never a pursuit. And I had to dig into why is that the case? Like, I really had to ask myself, Danielle, you are open to so many life experiences. What is it about this one that scares you or that's holding you back or that puts you off? And so again, the lesson there was like, just because you believe something your whole life doesn't mean that it has to be the belief that you continue to carry with you, right? And the realization I had at this ripe age of 40, when I started thinking about legacy was, I'm so open to these experiences. This is also an amazing experience that I have so much to give to a child. I have so much to give to another life. I can get so much learning from a child as well about who I am and why I am the way that I am and the things that I want to let go, the things I want to hold on to. Why not, right? And so then, I had my son when I was 42, a couple of years later. And again, the lesson there is just because you've believed something your whole life doesn't mean it's the belief that you have to continue to carry with you. Right. Just because you've done something your whole life doesn't mean you have to continue to do it that way. Right. You are always allowed to hit the reset button and make a change.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
That's a powerful story. I mean, for me, I think I can echo a couple of things. One, experience, talking about life is short. I had an uncle that I was very close to as a young man. And I think he was about, at that time, 10 years older than me. And he passed at 32. And I was devastated. So for me, I realized, because just like you, I thought everybody had a chance to get older, do their time. And so when he passed, at that point, I remember from the time I think I was 22, in my mind, I'm like, life is short. Any day could be my last day.
Any day.
And that was a reality that I lived for many years. I didn't even get free of that until I probably turned 34. I had to pass 2 years past that before that natural fear that, wow, I may not make it, right? Because natural things happen.
Yeah.
So I think, that was a clear message that I'm the author of my life and I can live outside the boundaries of the social norms. I can create the life that I want, and I can leave the legacy that I want, and I have to be intentional, right? Because time is not unlimited. Yeah. And I had a good friend tell me one time I was going through a very difficult part. It was related to a marriage, and I was going through a divorce, and I called my friend, and at that point, maybe my energy was a little negative because I was upset, and he stopped me, and he said, hey, I know who you are. I know who you care about. You've been distracted long enough. Get on to fulfilling your destiny that God has for you. And I was sitting, by the way, at that time in a restaurant called Chili's at the bar. I will never forget that day. It changed my life because he's right. Hey, we get distracted. Sometimes we become discouraged. And we have the power to cultivate a very powerful legacy and to live a very fulfilling life.
Yeah.
But we have to create a framework, and we have to start making decisions every day that move us towards self-actualization.
Yeah.
And we have to understand how critically important. And the other thing I want to say is, I also realized in my life that if I want to have a long legacy, that the better I become as a human being, the more whole I become. Everybody that I love around me becomes better because I have more to offer. My energy can be contagious. If people are down, I can bring them up. The smarter, the more knowledge I have, the more experience I have more to offer the world. Yeah. And that's how I live a long legacy, that if I just leave finances, it's not enough. It'll be gone in months. That I need to live a framework of how to live and be happy while you're on this earth.
Yeah.
And so I think when I was a kid, I used to always want to be a difference maker in my family. I always said, when I was a kid, we grew up in humble beginnings. We didn't have money, but we lived in a city, Washington, D.C., where some people were very wealthy and very powerful.
Yeah.
And, we used to think about somebody has to be the first Kennedy, the first Rockefeller. In my family, I was going to be the first Booker. I wanted to be remembered for making a difference by investing in education, by loving people, by caring. Now, at that time, maybe I had a lot of flaws. I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
But what I had was a burning desire to make a difference. I didn't know how, but I think through my travels, you mentioned 75 plus countries, through my travels, through my experience, through my navigation through corporate America, really looking at that, I figured out that, hey, I have the power to make an impact, and that's why I'm here today. I want to bring people like yourself that have that similar passion, you and many other people together to make sure that we bring our collective energy together to make a tremendous difference. And I always say, what could we do here in Nairobi together? What could we do together as a team? If we work well together in the community, we have a common purpose, we have the right framework, nothing can stop us.
True.
Every great movement starts with a core group of people, and I want to be the catalyst for that. And part of this podcast is really making sure that I fulfill that destiny and being the catalyst for that. So I just want to thank you for coming and being open and sharing your wealth of experience and knowledge with my listeners. I want to leave people with the message that, we can be great together. That there are places in the world, if London or Boston or Washington, D.C. or Tokyo is not the place that feels like home, find your home.
Yeah.
Okay? Find your peace. You know, if you don't have that sense of community where you are, come and join the movement. Maybe you start with Nairobi. Maybe Nairobi is your center of excellence for your wholeness. You know, seek that, because as you're better as a person, everybody you love, you'll be able to offer so much more as you grow. And you deserve to live in your destiny and your peace. You know, and if you think about self-actualization, it's about fulfilling your potential as a human being. We all have levels to this. And so we have that opportunity. I know you're here, I'm here, Nairobi's here to help you do that. And I encourage you to follow your heart. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you
Any
also.
closing remarks? How do we find you?
Yeah.
People need to get connected. Tell me, how do people find you and connect with you?
Great. So you can find me on social media on Instagram. I am at _Steepandstone, STEPANDSTONE. That's the best way to reach me. From there, you can also grab my WhatsApp. You can slide into my DMs. That's the best way.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one thing I want to say, and this is a compliment to you, it's been a pleasure. You know, I haven't known you long, but every conversation I walk away with nuggets and gifts that enrich me as a person.
Thank you.
I love the fact that you have not only the courage and strength, but to follow what's inside of you. A lot of people get that same feeling, you know, this is not the right place. I
Yeah.
need to move.
Yeah.
They don't act on it.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. They
sure.
feel it. They know this is not the right place for me.
Yeah.
But
And they may
feel
not know
stuck.
that detail. They know
Yeah.
that something feels off. Like it might manifest into health issues.
Correctly.
It might be anxiety. You might have, I remember even when I lived in London, I used to have spots on my back. I came back from a trip and I had spots on my back. And the doctor was like, it's stress. And I was like, what do you mean? Your body will like eat you from the inside,
Yeah.
you know? There are
Yeah.
signs and you can choose to ignore them and be unhappy, or you can maybe piss a few people off along the way and do what it is that makes you happy.
Yeah, and hey, I want to have a kid in my 40s. You know what? Let's do it.
Yeah.
You know, you're able to make those choices. I think it's beautiful. And speaking of health, I think we should close on that. I mean, one of the, I guess this is can be controversial a little bit, but as I talk to some of the people I really care about in the States who are living what they consider a successful life, maybe. Maybe in terms of wealth, they have a nice house, nice car, you know, material things. But, you know, they're similar in age. I'm in my 50s, and they're failing health.
Yeah.
They don't sleep well. They have high blood pressure, diabetes, every illness, you know, available. They have constant disruptions in their lives and stress about some, you know, geopolitical factors that are happening around them. And that's not peace.
No.
And I want to encourage them to really prioritize their emotional and physical health over things. We don't need that much to be happy, right? I remember having a house, you know, at one point, it's like there were rooms we didn't even go into.
Yeah.
But we needed this house for these rooms just in case we needed them one day. So self-actualization is critically important. The clock is ticking, no matter how you feel about your life. An uncle of mine said this to me, and this was powerful. I was talking to him one day, and he said, you know, based on life expectancy in America, you know, I may only have 9 or 10 more summers.
That's crazy.
And it literally, I'm like, and you know, in the States, a summer comes around and goes pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And if you start thinking about your life, you may only have 9 or 10 more summers.
Yeah.
And if you're not living well, that's assuming you're average.
Right.
If you're not average in terms of your life expectancy and you're not living a whole and healthy life, chances are you'll have less. So let's extend our life through better health, better living conditions, a more supportive and loving community. That makes you whole. And so I want to close with this conversation. Thank you for joining the channel, Life by Design with Tim Booker. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you
I
so
look
much.
forward to our continued conversations. And for my listeners, live an intentional life, become whole. Thank you.